So good evening and welcome to session 3 of the East Valley School District's Connected Caregivers series. Today we will focus on cyberbullying and digital drama. My name is Tracy Lenahan and I am the Digital Learning Specialist for the East Valley School District, and I will be facilitating tonight's presentation. And I am joined by my co-host here, Carrie Roderick, who is the Assistant Director of Technology and Assessment for the district. And she's going to monitor the chat for any kind of questions that come up. And what we plan to do is to save all the questions until the end of the presentation. And then we'll stay on afterwards for up to 15 minutes and answer any questions at the end that you might have. So welcome and thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and turn my video off here to get us started. And Carrie, you are seeing the screen, right? The title slide.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I guess I should have checked that first. Okay, so let me get there. Oops. So most of our resources that we're going to reference tonight in this presentation come from Common Sense Media. And Common Sense is an organization that's been providing resources for families and educators and other advocates since 2003. And their work is really aimed at helping kids thrive in a digital world. And at the end of the presentation, I will share with you some of the resources available on the Common Sense website so that you can use it to support your kids down the road here. Okay, so this is what we're going to be covering tonight. And more than anything, we want our kids to be safe and healthy and happy. But it seems like, there's new cyberbullying stories in the headlines, every week. And as we sadly see, the effects can be really devastating for everyone involved. And cyberbullying statistics have shown that our modern technology, with its ability to increase our connectivity, can also be the perfect platform for this bullying. So what is considered cyberbullying? Cyberbullying is basically online cruelty, and it takes place whenever someone uses digital media tools like the internet or a cell phone to deliberately upset or harass someone else. And often it's repeatedly. So while spreading rumors and bullying is really nothing new for kids, with online tools, it can really magnify that hurt, that humiliation, and that social drama in a really public way. So the terms on this slide represent the types of actions that can lead to digital drama. And while cyberbullying can be a leading factor in digital drama, they're not exactly the same thing. Digital drama is actually considered to be like the everyday tiffs and disputes that occur between friends and acquaintances, when they're online or via text. But unlike cyberbullying, which involves that repeated digital harassment towards someone, digital drama is broader and a little more nuanced. So with that being said, kids and teens sometimes use that term drama to distance themselves from emotionally difficult behavior. So, digital drama can feel very real to kids and lead to really hurt feelings and even damaged friendships. And in some cases, digital drama can escalate into an offline fight. It can either be verbal or it can be physical. So digital drama is a little bit different, and cyberbullying can promote that digital drama. And we also need to acknowledge that some of the stress that a teen feels or a tween feels about online interactions sometimes is about other kinds of pressure and anxiety that they're feeling in their lives, or kind of a combination. So online cruelty, it can take a lot of forms. And one of these forms is what is called flaming. And flaming is a heated online argument with a bunch of insults thrown back and forth. And these are instigated by the bully on a regular basis. And then what happens is the victim retaliates. So this type of behavior is called flaming. So it's that online argument, they go back and forth, both people are involved in it. And then you might have heard the term trolling. Trolling is just a constant stream of negative comments that just don't ever seem to end. That can be on any social media platform. It can be, you know, in a gaming platform, something like that. So it's that just constant negative comments being made. And then there's these slightly subtler and kind of sneakier forms, some which are meant to be mean and some which might be driven by other motivations. So for instance, outing. So this is when, you know, a kid tells their friend something personal on one day, and then they get into a fight. And then the next day, they reveal that information to everyone. So it could be anything, but it's when you're trusting a friend and then that friend betrays you. That's called outing. The next one is called excluding. I think this is a really important one because a lot of times excluding is unintentional. It's not really bullying, you know, it's not like it's intentionally bullying, but when kids are posting pictures of an event that they're at, knowing that an uninvited person is going to see those pictures and feel bad, and then does it more than once, that can turn into bullying. They also call that unfriending, but that exclusion is huge, especially with social media and people posting how all these fabulous things that they're doing in their lives, and the child on the other end is not included in that. The other one is impersonating, hacking, or spying. And this really is making a fake account in someone else's name or pretending that you're somebody else. So this goes to, you know, making sure that our kids are protecting their passwords and not sharing things like that with someone else, because they can impersonate when those kids get into a fight. So that's impersonating and spying. So then, you know, there's been quite a bit of research in recent years about cyberbullying, and the statistics vary pretty widely, but there's a couple of important key takeaways. Number one, it doesn't happen to every kid. Number two, in-person bullying is still more common. Now, I would hesitate to say that right now because we're in the middle of a pandemic and there's not a lot of in-person anything happening. But generally, since before the pandemic, the in-person bullying is more common than the cyberbullying. And three, despite the low prevalence, even though there's fewer cases of it, it's very serious and it has high impact when it's that serious. So, you know, for instance, one embarrassing picture sent to lots of people can have a really negative and potentially long-lasting consequences on a kid's life. So it's got that high impact where the in-person isn't as impactful. So the consequences of cyberbullying they can really vary depending on a lot of different factors. You know, depends on the kid. So for some kids, it's a bummer and they bounce back quickly. For other kids, it's really hard in that moment and it impacts them, but they get over it pretty quickly and it just kind of becomes a bad memory. So I'm going to show you this quick little video here that kind of demonstrates that. And the one thing I want to mention here is that we often think of girls when we think of cyberbullying and digital drama, but it's important to remember that boys are also perpetrators and victims as well. So I'm going to show this short little video right here to kind of give you an idea of how one kid might react to cyberbullying as opposed to another.
I got cyberbullied in the beginning of 10th grade, and this girl was posting anonymous comments on my pictures saying how I was ugly and fat, and she would send me texts about how she saw me in the hallway and I didn't look good that day, or something about my appearance, and she always had a nasty comment to say.
I always get body shamed for being thick or being too big.
So easy to send a photo of yourself. You know, you might trust somebody but end up not being a trustworthy person. Even if it's behind their back, it's, you know, it's still cyberbullying. It's hurtful.
One time I posted a picture and I got like, it was like, oh, like, you're totally gay, like, that's so gay. And it was like, okay. And then like they kept commenting.
I was FaceTiming her and like maybe something that I shouldn't have been, and she took a screenshot of me and sent it to a bunch of people at my school.
I felt like hurt at first because when somebody's saying a bunch of mean things to you, it kind of gets to you, even though you're taught not to worry about everybody else's opinion.
Like, I started questioning whether or not I should even keep my social media accounts because all of this negativity is just like held within it.
Last year I didn't want to go to school because of a person saying things online.
I didn't even like want to go outside. Oh, I didn't want to spend time with like friends because I thought I was like fat, or so yeah.
So those are examples of kids that kind of, you know, it impacts them, but they can kind of get over it in a little while. But for other kids, it can be really absolutely devastating for them. So I'm going to show this quick little video of this girl here and what she goes through to show the difference.
I've seen people fall from cyberbullying. They've either just gave up on their lives, they lost their will to live, or they just got into drugs or alcohol. You can think about cyberbullying into a physical form. If you tear a paper in half, you can't make that paper whole again. You can tape it together, but will it ever be the same? No.
So Carrie and I were actually talking about this analogy of this piece of paper, which we thought was pretty powerful, because really, you know, when you take that piece of paper and it's whole and you rip it apart, you can try to put it back together, but it's never going to be exactly what it was like before. And sometimes that's what that cyberbullying feels like to some of our kids. So, you know, a lot of people wonder why. So why do kids and teens bully each other online? Well, they do it for all the same reasons that kids and adults have always bullied each other. I mean, bullying has been around forever, and it's not just limited to kids. You know, we see that happen in the adult world as well. But they bully each other to gain positive attention and social standing, or to feel powerful. They might be angry at somebody, or they just meant to tease someone and it got serious. That happens a lot with cyberbullying, or because they were bullied themselves. And a lot of times we see kids that have been bullied turn into bullies. Not all the time, of course, but that can happen as a result of being bullied. So how is online bullying different than in person? Well, there's this sense of disinhibition, which is the sense of being anonymous and disconnected from others' feelings, so that you can behave in a way that you may not in a face-to-face situation. In-person bullying is still a problem, but for most people, it's much easier to be mean from behind the screen than face-to-face. Also, this type of bullying is no longer limited to the hallway or a bus stop, because now kids can comment or text or subtweet or screenshot, impersonate on all different kinds of platforms. So it feels like there's no escape from it. Also, the reach is much wider. So someone can send an embarrassing screenshot to 50 people in less than a minute and not see the impact it has on that victim. And the way we communicate online takes a lot of different forms, and people like to one-up each other a lot with memes or jokes and comments. And it can easily get engaged with this banter, and people can lose sight of the person that's actually being bullied. So how do you know if this is happening to your kids? So if you were in our other session, we had these traffic signals, which were kind of helpful. Time to watch. We're looking at typical tween and teen development. So you're creating this baseline of what's normal and then what's outside the norm. There's a lot of variations, and you know your kid best. So just note that these are some overall generalities. On the Common Sense Media website, they outline what's happening for kids at certain ages based on child development research. So that's a really important piece to remember when we go back to the Common Sense Media resources. But there are some characteristics or preoccupations you might see as your kid hits puberty and beyond. So if you've got a tween or a teen, you're already starting to see some of these things that are on this list here. So, kids, they worry about their social status. They might seem secretive or rebellious. They're really starting to care about what other kids think of them, more so than what their parents think of them or their caregivers think of them. And we also know that hormonal changes can cause these big feelings and quick changes in our kids. And then, we can't forget that biologically, when teens and tweens with their brain development, they're less able to consider the consequences of their actions, and they're more likely to take risks and feel a little bit invincible. So just to know that these are normal things, just keep an eye on them. Now, when we get to the time to ask, these are changes in behavior that we want to kind of start to have that dialogue with our kids, if not before. But what's tricky for parents is that these signs of cyberbullying can overlap with what's considered that normal behavior for this age group. So kids, they withdraw and become more secretive. They're more emotional and volatile. Their behavior and identity can shift. So it can be hard to guess what's happening with our kids if they don't tell you. They might even be glued to their device in a more obsessive way than they normally are, or full of angst around their device, or suddenly stop using their phone and trying to avoid being online. That's a clue that something might be going on. And so also the duration, if your child stays upset or anxious or withdrawn over the course of a few days, something's going on. It might not be cyberbullying, but it's probably a good idea to ask and engage in that conversation. Now, while it can be tricky to tell what's actually happening with your child, these behaviors fall outside of typical development and require professional intervention, self-harm. So this is cutting, burning, or otherwise inflicting harm on yourself. Suicidal thoughts or ideation, talking about it, writing about it, or references to suicide, or having a plan on how to do it, or total withdrawal. They just quit everything. They won't see their friends. They quit their activities. They don't want to talk or share with family, and they just isolate themselves. And there's this quick, accessible resource is this crisis text line. So if you text this number, 741-741, if you just text that number, it will connect you with a counselor any day, anytime. So it's kind of nice to have available to you or to your child that you're caring for, just in case they need some serious help there. So what do we do? If it's not happening to your kid right this minute, you can work on preventing it, or at least foster good communication and strategies if it ever happens. So kids start bullying behavior when they're young. So it's good to talk about it early, ideally before you give them a cell phone. And what you want to do is encourage empathy early and encourage empathy often. Try to help your kids see others' perspectives and understand others' feelings. And then as your child goes online more often, you want to talk through potential scenarios and strategies. What can cyberbullying look like? What information or content should they keep offline? How do they block someone from different platforms? And that's another thing that Common Sense has in their resources, is they'll show you all the different apps, social media apps, gaming apps that kids are using, and shows you how to block people or set preferences that and safety things on there. So it's, again, a great resource. It's also good to teach your kid how to take a screenshot on different devices, because sometimes they're going to want to capture a message and they need to know how to do that. And then talk to them about when it's time to get adult help. Stay involved. And I know it's tempting to, want to stay out of your kid's life, digital life, because they don't want you involved. They don't want you hovering, but it's good to do spot checks and check-ins. It will help with communication later. And then really knowing who your kids' friends are. We do that when we have our kids in person and they're going to go see a friend at their friend's house. We know who that kid is. Same thing online. And so when we know who those kids are, when we see things start to happen online, we know who they're talking to and what's involved with it. And then just kind of setting limits and having some device-free times around, during the day or the week, and modeling that good digital citizenship. So, practice being kind yourself. Start asking, another great thing to do is to ask your child's permission to post pictures of them to your social media. Because a lot of times parents, caregivers, grandparents, we post pictures of our kids all over the place, but we never ask them for their permission. So if you start to model that, they might start doing the same thing with their friends. Like, hey, do you mind if I post this picture of us on social media? So things like that kind of help as well. Kids, they handle these issues themselves or support with their peers. A lot of times they just do that. They might even on their own decide to take a device break until things blow over. Kids will make those kind of decisions on their own. If your child shows interest in hanging out with the family and doing something fun that doesn't involve devices, take advantage of it. I mean, really jump in and take that opportunity, because they might be trying to avoid some drama that's going on. Stay engaged and involved in their online lives to some kind of extent. So it doesn't mean that you're monitoring and spying, but it does mean that you ask questions and checking things out and checking in with your kid regularly. And then it's really important to lead with empathy and compassion and really try to put yourself in your kids' shoes. So, some parents tell their kids to just ignore it, but really that's not realistic or helpful, because so much of our kids' social life is lived online and they can't ignore it. And it might turn out that they need some more intervention. So, just getting in there and having that empathy and compassion and trying to understand and having those conversations. And then also be really encouraging and remind them that though it might feel like the world is ending to them and that they're completely alone, it's just one moment. And there are a lot of people who love and support them. And then sometimes, if your tween or teen seeks out another adult to talk to, like a relative or a family friend, that's also a great thing for them to do as well, to have those connections. So if your child's safety is in question, the harassment is pervasive and overwhelming, their overall well-being is in jeopardy, or your kid asks you to intervene, then it's time for you to step in. So you want to make sure that your child's blocking and reporting online. A lot of times it says, do you want to report this? It might feel a little futile, but you know what? Block it and report it. And then tell your kids not to retaliate. And then gather evidence, take screenshots and get names and save text threads, all that kind of stuff. And then involve the necessary parties to shut it down. Sometimes face-to-face mediation between the bully and victim can resolve things. School personnel will often step in, but only if the bullying is happening during school hours and or on campus. If it's happening off school grounds and not during, the time where the students are supposed to be supervised during the school day, you're going to have to go a different route. And Washington, along with many other states, have anti-cyberbullying laws. And so sometimes police intervention is going to be necessary for something like that as well. So the most powerful tool we have to combat cyberbullying is upstanding. And upstanding is when kids stand up to the bully and for each other. It's the opposite of being a bystander. So, it's easy when we see it all the time when kids get bullied and people stand around. But to be that upstander, that's what we want our kids to start doing. Sometimes it's necessary that adults step in. But ideally, when tweens and teens can take care of each other, that's the best way to stop cyberbullying. There's really no social reward for the bully, and there's pushback from other peers. When that happens, it's more likely to stop when they're not getting that kind of reward. So we can encourage kids to have each other's backs and remind each other how to post and comment and share pictures and how that affects the person on the other end behind the screen. So these are some of the resources provided by Common Sense Media. I highly recommend the Ultimate Guides. I use these all the time when my son wants to add a new platform or play a new game. These guides give you all the information you need to understand the ins and outs of social media, games, devices, settings, controls, that whole type of thing. So what I'd like to do is come out to this really quick. I want to show you, before we wrap this up, what this looks like, these parent ultimate guides. So here's TikTok right here. If I click on this, I know nothing about TikTok as an adult here. And this video will tell me what it is. And then it just talks about, is it safe? Is it appropriate? Can kids under 13 use it? How do you do a duet? What are these different things? Because you start to hear your kids use this language and you're like, I don't know what that means. What is a duet? What on TikTok? What does this mean and that mean? So you can go through and it gives you as a parent everything that you are going to want to know about TikTok. And they do this for all types of games and other social media. They do it for cell phones. They do it for if kids want to do broadcasting, live streaming, everything's in here. So I recommend that you check that out when you get a chance. So let me move this guy over here. So this is going to wrap us up right here, but I want to let you know that we have a bonus session coming up. We were going to do 3 sessions, and tonight is our 3rd session. But we are going to do a bonus session. We've teamed up with the East Valley Community Coalition to bring you this session, and we're going to call it Connected Caregivers, and it's preventing risky behaviors in adolescence. And so this is going to cover not just the digital side of things, but the actual, real world things that our kids are facing and how we as caregivers can help prevent those behaviors. And so that'll be on March 3rd at 5:30 p.m. So we invite you to join us there. And again, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I hope you walk away with some useful information. And then Carrie and I will stay on for about 15 minutes and we'll answer any questions that you guys might have. So enjoy the rest of your evening and thanks again.